Today we're starting the 8th chapter. May this reading relax your mind and awaken your heart. Let's dive right into it. Hello, G. After I recovered, Ramsey, Jeff, and I resumed our journey eastward. In those days, there was a whole counterculture of world travelers who endured the hardships of a very low budget. Most were adventurous, and many were spiritually inclined. At times we met in the most unexpected places. In Erzurum, you can tell me if I can pronounce that place better, Ramsey and Jeff met some traveling brothers who had convinced a bus driver to let them ride for free on a company bus traveling to Tehran. The bus was only half filled with supplies, so there was plenty of room for a few passengers. In this way, joining them, we crossed the border of Turkey and entered Iran. Once inside the impressive immigration building on the border, we took note of the wall-sized photograph of the Shah. Even more sobering was a sign posted by the U.S. State Department. In big letters it warned American citizens that Iran, the penalty for possession, transportation, or selling of hashish or opium products was death. If one was arrested, the State Department had little influence to help. The bus driver was delayed by immigration formalities, so we went to wait inside the bus. Pardon me. It was evening. Soon, a crowd of children gathered to see the strange foreigners through the bus window. Although they wore ragged clothing, they were beautiful children. I smiled at a small boy of about 4 years old, but he glared back at me with such intense hatred in his eyes that I lost my breath. How was it possible for such a small child to possess such hate? I was to be haunted by repeating nightmares of his stare. I thought how frightening it was to see how impressionable children are. By family and surroundings, they can be conditioned to love, fear, or hate before they are even able to reason. We arrived at the ancient city of Tabriz. As I explored the streets on my own one day, one kind family invited me into their home, a 2-room abode made of brick. The women of the family had been working painstakingly for several years on a single Persian rug. Mother and daughter sat on the floor of their simple hut creating precious art. The intricate designs might have up to 250 handmade knots per square inch. Naturally, dyed wool shone with dazzling colors, each one with a life of its own. Red, blue, green, orange, yellow, white, and violet. These were but a few of the colorful yarns they stitched so meticulously. So simple and gracious was their hospitality that I felt like part of the family. They didn't speak a word of English, but that didn't matter. For dinner, all the men of the family sat on the floor and invited me to join them. They first recited a beautiful prayer of thanksgiving before enjoying the flatbread and tea. As we munched happily on the homemade food, their 10-year-old son entered the door smiling proudly. He had a great surprise in his clenched hands. Dates from their tree. Moving toward me, he placed the sumptuous fruit on my plate. Everyone laughed and exclaimed my good fortune. 5 times a day the family abandoned whatever they were doing to offer prayers to Allah and the holy city of Mecca. The natural devotion of these humble souls moved my heart. I thanked God for this experience, and I thanked this family for their kindness towards a wayward stranger. Our bus cruised through the mystical terrain of Iran. As far as the eyes could see, the flat, arid desert expanded in all directions. Hours passed with no sign of life. From time to time, sandy hills or villages of tiny clay houses appeared in the distance. We drove during the cool parts of the day and all night long. One night, the moonless sky filled with a multitude of stars that sparkled beyond the horizons on all sides. Fascinated by the beauty, we stared through the bus windows. My fellow travelers urged me to play my harmonica. Gazing into the ocean of stars, I played a spontaneous song of my sincere yearning for God. I poured my heart into that instrument. As my tearful song played, the bus fell silent. When it ended, everyone exclaimed. I looked around and saw more than a few passengers weeping. Smiling, my friend Jeff patted my shoulder from the seat behind, while in front my other friend Ramsey flicked his thumb up in approval. I was humbled, knowing that I really didn't know how to play the instrument well. I thanked God and Jimmy the Bear back in Opalaka. It was while traveling across the Iranian deserts that concern for my mother and father flooded my heart. They had expected me home several weeks earlier and had not heard from me since Athens. They must be suffering miserably. Why then did I not write to them? The truth was, I didn't know how to compose the letter. Whatever words I might use to try to explain my resolve to travel overland to India, their hearts would shatter. What could I do? My search for God had become the only thing I was living for. If I neglected it, I knew I would be a hollow shell. Mother and father had dedicated their lives and souls to the welfare of their 3 children. Both came from poor Jewish families whose immigrant parents fled from Lithuania, Romania, Russia, and Poland to escape religious persecution. As far as I knew, all the relatives who'd remained were later murdered by the Nazis. My mother had lived through a difficult childhood. As a small girl, she suffered her father's early death. Then soon after, her elder sister was attacked in an alley and left traumatized for life. As a teenager, my mother had to work to support her ailing mother, her now handicapped elder sister, and her younger sister. But she was always cheerful and grateful for what God had given her. Later in life, she served her husband and children faithfully 24 hours a day, but she never abandoned her first family, quietly scrimping and saving to send relief. While raising 3 sons, she single-handedly did all the chores of the household, including cleaning, washing, and ironing clothes, shopping, and cooking an amazing feast every evening. She was slender, radiant, and dressed meticulously. The parents of all my friends marveled at my mother's beauty and grace. Her willingness to help others extended beyond her family. As long as I could remember, she joyfully volunteered to serve in various charitable organizations, performing in fundraising dances in particular, and my brothers and I were always on guard lest she suddenly give our used toys or clothes away to Goodwill. Throughout our lives, she had emphasized the virtue of gratitude. She was sure to ask if I had thanked the parents of my friends, if I ate at their houses, sure that I offered thanks to whomever showed kindness to me. Of all the displeasing traits children could exhibit, ingratitude disturbed her the most. Consequently, she was sure not to spoil us by satisfying our whims, and whenever we were given a gift, she stressed, "It's the thought that counts." She led by example. Whether she received a gift of precious jewelry or a simple flower, she was equally thrilled. In this, she taught me that happiness comes not from the material thing, but from the love with which it is given. She took immense pride in seeing whatever good we did. Whether the results were big or small, she was happy as long as our efforts were honest. Time and again, she revealed her selfless service to us. When I had suffered my dislocated shoulder, she was there within moments to drive me to the hospital. After surgery, the first person I saw at my bedside was my mother. I coughed and pleaded, "Mom, your cigarette is making me sick." As was the fashion for American women at the time, she had been smoking 2 packs of cigarettes every day for over 15 years. But the thought that she caused me pain greatly affected her heart. As she frantically extinguished the cigarette, tears welled in her brown eyes. Ashamed, she came to my bedside, stroked my cheek, and said, "Darling Richie, if my smoking causes you pain, I promise you to never touch another cigarette for the rest of my life." And she never smoked again. My father shared much in common with my mother. He had to leave school at 15 due to shortage of food at home and labored to assist his parents in the time of the Great Depression. Later, as a married man, he worked hard to financially maintain his aging parents and sickly mother-in-law, along with his own family. Financial challenges seemed to follow him like a shadow. In 1958, when I was 7 years old, he and my Uncle Irving invested everything they had in a promising business venture. They became the largest automobile dealership in the Chicago area for a brand new line by Ford, the Edsel. But Edsel's sales plummeted, becoming infamous as one of the greatest failures in automobile industry or history. Consequently, my father sunk into bankruptcy and lost everything. I watched as he struggled, working long hours to protect us from poverty. Besides providing for the welfare of his children, my father loved to play sports and games with us, and when he had the time, took me to football and baseball games. Later, he opened a shop for auto repairs and, in time, with hard work, became quite wealthy. Still, from the age of 15, I worked various jobs after school hours and during school vacations. I never wanted to add to the burden on my parents, a value I had absorbed by their example. The day before I was to leave home for college, my father was especially emotional. "Richie," he said, "let's take a ride together." We drove along the tranquil streets of Highland Park, Sherwood Forest, surrounded by the sounds of children laughing and playing. "Son," he began, "as long as I'm alive, I'm always here for you." Stopping the car, he held my hand as his voice quivered. "As your father, I expect you to do your best, but whether you succeed or fail, do good or bad deeds, or even betray me, as long as I'm alive, I'll love you and I'm here for you. This is a promise I will live and die to keep. Please, never forget this." Overwhelmed, I listened. I knew that he meant every word he spoke. Sure enough, he remained true to his promise, though I was to test him beyond his farthest expectations. The bus stopped on a hill outside the village, and I was lifted out of my reminiscence. I lifted my duffel bag off the floor, untied the strings, and pulled out a pen and an Iranian aerogram. The moment had come to explain my resolve to my parents. "My dear family," I began writing. "Everything has been going well with me. Roads get bumpy at times, but they are fine roads. I have been doing much thinking and have found that now is the time when I will do something I have been longing to do. Much thought and much contemplation has gone into making it clear that this is the right way. Throughout the world, people look at life through different windows. For almost 20 years, I have been seeing through the eyes of a Western man. I have seen and experienced the laws, philosophies, religions, arts, and overall ways of life of the West. Now I will see how life is lived in the East. I do this not to escape my previous life, but to see another. It is something I cannot see through schools, because schools can only tell me about this through slanted points of view. So I will go to the East myself. What greater education is there than that? I am not doing this to worry you, so please don't hurt yourselves by worrying. It is impossible to write as often as you would like. Sometimes I simply cannot find a post office. My friend Gary is no longer traveling with me. He is in Israel. I always have companions. Give my love to all friends and relatives. richer. The letter was postmarked Iran and had no return address. So we've come to the end of the 8th chapter. Thank you for listening with me. As a little treat for your patience, we've come to another part of the book where there's some pictures. I'll start the next reading with some pictures too, so I won't go through all of them, but I'll show you a couple pages. On this page, see if you can recognize these people. The upper left, we have George Harrison with his friends and his guide Shyam Sundar. To the right of that, the author's lifelong friend Gary with traveling companion Hackett. Looking like proper hippies, I must say. Your favorite Beatle, Jim, as well as Don Suelas. I love them too. The lower left, we have Baba Ram Das, founder of the Seva and Hanuman Foundations and the author of Be Here Now. And to the right of it, his guru, Neem Karoli Baba, renowned mystic yogi. He was revered as a most recent avatar of Hanuman. You like Ram Das, dear Alex? Me too. And his guru by Krishna Das, he's still alive and makes the most wonderful kirtanas. On the next page we have the Madan Mohan Temple in Vrindavan. See if you can see this. Some sneak peeks at the next part of our adventure to come. Joe Sand, you're wondering if there's been any recordings or writings of Neem Karoli Baba. There's a whole movie, which is for free on a website. It's a beautiful movie that made my heart sing. And there are many pictures of him, a few videos, and even a recording of him chanting Ram, 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 Ram. We've listened to it before. I've posted it on the meditations playlist in the YouTube channel. And below that, there is Asim Krishna Das to the right, and the author to the left, after his fateful haircut. All right, we will pause our exploration of those pictures there for now, and we'll begin our next reading session with them. What's the movie called, dear Alex? The movie of Neem Karoli Baba? Let me find out for you. Oh, it seems like there's actually a couple of them. But the one I watched was called Windfall of Grace. Windfall of Grace. It's available for free on YouTube, it seems, as well. In various versions. There's a longer version too. Alright, I look forward to listening with you as our journey unfolds next time.